Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Jack Morrigan, and he's going to tell us about. Now, are you calling this a near-death experience, an awakening, spiritual experience?
Yes, I would say that it's a near-death-like experience. It's very
Okay.
similar to near-death experiences that I've seen, but it was during meditation that it happened.
Okay. So feel free to start wherever you like, and we'll see what happens here.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So I was an atheist for most of my life. Um, so I was studying medicine and I was training to become a doctor. And then I changed to psychology and I completed a psychology degree, all the time having this view of death and spirituality that it was uh, that basically death was the end. You know, when you die, that's it. You know, game over, and that was a very terrifying thought. Um, and I didn't have any interest in spirituality. It just wasn't something that had really crossed my path. And I was getting ready to move to a new city, and someone recommended a spiritual teacher to me. And I watched a video of this teacher on YouTube, and I was amazed because I was looking at this guy, and um, he suddenly just started glowing. And I was looking at him transfixed, like, why is this man glowing? I've never seen anything like this before. Um, my mind went very quiet as I was looking at him. And then afterwards, I saw that he had a video that said how to stop thinking. And I'd never really thought about that before. Like, am I supposed to not be thinking? Like, is that a thing? So I just right, exactly. And then I sat on my bed and I just tried to meditate. And I had no background in meditation. I didn't know anything about it. I just did what I had seen in films, you know? And to my surprise, as I watched my thoughts, they slowed down and then they eventually completely stopped. And in their place was just this radiant presence that was that filled my mind with a sense of peace and that filled the whole room that I was in. Um, and I was just dumbfounded. Like, how has this happened? How can something like this happen? But I've never heard of it until now.
Who did you think
I
it
had all the,
was?
I had no idea, absolutely none. Like, I can look back at it now and I can go, oh, that's like the presence of the divine that was shining through my mind. But at the time, I didn't have any knowledge of spirituality to understand it. All I had was this teacher that I had seen, and he called it presence. So I was like, okay, I guess this is presence, and presence is amazing, and I want more of this. Um, so I would dip in and out of that space over the next maybe 6 months. It would just come and go. And it was just a really beautiful time of that coming online. Um, and then I discovered a book by a Hindu saint called Ramana Maharshi. And he advocates this style of meditation called self inquiry. So I quite kind of diligently just dived straight into that um, without really knowing what that might do to to very strictly follow a profound mystical um, teaching. And looking back at it, I was quite naive. But what happened was I triggered a Kundalini awakening in myself. Um, and again, I didn't know anything about Kundalini or anything. It just just happened to me. So what happened was that one night, um, I was having a lucid dream. So I was conscious in this dream, and I was sat in front of a spiritual teacher, and he told me his teaching, which was feel the awareness in your left hand, feel the awareness in your right hand. The hands are different. So then I feel them. It's like, yeah, okay, that's different places. And then he said, but the awareness is one. And something about that just clicked inside of me. And I realized it, like not as an idea, but I experienced it. And when that happened, it was like this switch was flicked. And that's when it became like a near-death experience, because the whole dream just collapsed in on itself. And all I could see was darkness. And it was like I was just this floating point of consciousness, just with all just darkness around, nothing else. And then in the distance, I started to see a point of light. And it slowly started to grow. And as it grew, I felt a sense of terror inside of me. A terror that I haven't really experienced since. It was like, I am going to die. Like, there is no doubt about it. Like, that kind of terror, very, very intense. But alongside it, there was like a bliss. So there was this real blissful feeling and complete terror at the same time. And as the light grew, both of those sensations grew together. I reached a point where kind of in my mind, I was literally screaming, like as if I was falling off a cliff, you know, that's the kind of noise I would make. Just to give a sense of how intense that was. But yeah, so the light got brighter and brighter. And eventually it was basically all that I could see. And I could feel that there was like an invisible barrier between me and the light. And some kind of being was there. I could feel this presence of another being. And without saying any words, it was inviting me to cross over this invisible barrier, just like, oh, would you like to? And to which I was saying no, because if I cross over that barrier, I'm going to die. Like there's like, yeah, I'll be annihilated. It was such an intense sensation. But thankfully, this being seemed to take matters into its own hands, and it gave me a little nudge. And it just nudged me across this barrier. And when it did, the fear just completely vanished, as though it had never, ever been there. And all I was experiencing was this golden white light, like an ocean, and bliss. And that was it, just bliss and golden white light. And it was amazing. It was just so, it's like everything was just dialed up to maximum for the sensations. So I don't know how long I was there for, but it felt like, you know, it could have been any amount of time. And eventually I started to worry about my body. I was like, oh, is my body okay? And then I came into my body, and I could feel this like lightning like energy moving up and down my spine with the same blissful feeling. My spine was in a very strange posture, like really kind of unnatural and rigid. Yeah, and I was drenched in sweat and quite exhausted. And eventually this slowly calmed down, and then I was able to fall asleep.
Oh, when you woke up, was you wide awake? Or was did you just drift back to sleep or?
It's hard to remember. I think I was wide awake, because I was like lucid in the dream state, you know? So it's like I wasn't really asleep. I was just shifting in and out of my body.
So when you woke up, what did you make of it?
I mean, I had no idea what had happened. I had no idea. Like I hadn't heard of this before. Um, so you know, it's funny. I can't even really remember what I did. I remember I was talking to someone who was a spiritual teacher at the time, and I remember mentioning it to them. And I think because of their monastic training, their attitude with things like this was like, just play it down, you
Would you
know?
say humanistic training? What?
Oh, monastic.
What's that?
So she was trained as a Trappist monk.
What's a
So she was
Trappist?
it's a type of Catholic monk.
Oh,
Um, so if you've ever heard of Thomas Merton, he's a famous Trappist monk
okay. So you talked to
who,
them about it? This Catholic
yeah,
monk? What did they say?
yeah. Uh, I think their exact words were, "It's nothing to sneeze at." Like, because I was like, you know, hunting after this big enlightenment experience and hoping to kind of earn this title. And she was sort of like, yeah, you know, that's interesting that that's happened. You know, really playing it down, uh, um, which I think, to be honest, I needed more than that. Like, I needed some information about what had happened and
Answers.
what I could. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so what happened after that was that it completely changed my consciousness. So it's like if the dimmer switch was just suddenly turned up. So my mind just opened and I started having out body experiences regularly, where I would go to angelic realms and meet angels and talk to them. And that's, I can like feel myself tearing up because I'm like, it's difficult to talk about those places and those beings without becoming emotional. Like they're so beautiful and amazing beings.
What did they talk
Um,
about?
they so they didn't really say much. Like it's like so they would just like call my name. I'd hear them calling my name in the night, and I'd start having an out of body experience, and it would just be them. This beautiful, like motherly energy, just like completely serene and loving. It's like they didn't really need to say anything. It's just the energy that their voice held was so healing. Like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. Like, the heart is so pure. Um, one of them visited me in the night, and I don't know if it was an angel, but it was some kind of celestial being. Like, they were made of just pure golden light, and they floated through my window. Um, and I was terrified because I was like, what is going on? Um, and they were just staring at me really intensely. Like they didn't actually have a face that I could see, but their head was just really focused on me. And they knelt down by my bed, just staring at me and took my hands. And I could feel like the energy of fear being drained out of my body and into this being. Like it was just sucking it out of me. Um, and it took me by the hand, like in an astral, like in an out of body experience. It took me by the hand, and we like flew off through the window together. Um, and I think what it was doing was some kind of energy healing on me and releasing some trauma from my past. Um, helping to clarify my mind. Because as we left my room, I felt so calm, so peaceful. And, you know, it's just incredible that these beings exist, that they're there and they're real, and they have a very sincere desire to help humanity. Like it's really a strong wish for them. And I couldn't understand why. Like, why has this being that is so magnificent decided to come to me in my room? Like, I don't understand. And it's taken years really to understand why. And the answer, I think, is because they are so aware that everything is the divine. Like, it's so clear to them. They know that we are them and they are us. So when they come to visit us and perform healings, they're healing themselves. And to them, that's obvious. And why wouldn't you heal yourself? You know? But to us, it can be less obvious because we're in more of a state of separation in our minds. So we don't realize that we're one and that we're equal. You know, they aren't superior to us. They certainly don't see themselves as that, at least as far as I've seen with them.
Can you share any information that they passed on or that you gained through this?
Let me just have a think for a second. So it's not like specific kinds of information like that you might, like facts. It's not like facts, but there's the awareness that there are other realms of existence, that our human realm is only one of those, and that there are many more. And that really humanity has fallen out of alignment with everything else. You know, we aren't in communication with those realms like we used to be in the past. Our minds have become disconnected and we lost the ability to communicate with them. But that doesn't mean that they're not there and that they're not seeking communication with us. They are there. And there are all sorts of beings there who are constantly putting in time and energy to kind of work for humanity and work for the earth. And one of the things that happened in these out of body experiences was I was taken to this realm, which to my mind looked like a town, like a small town, but I think it was just my mind interpreting it in a way I could understand. And there were all these different beings moving around, like with a lot of intention, like going about their tasks. And I had a couple of guides with me, and they took me over to this market stall, and they said to me, only a human being can pick up what we want you to pick up. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll pick this thing up. And then they take me over to a pool of water, and they say, we need you to put it in this water, which I did. And then they explained what it was. Like, the pool of water was like somebody's dream, and they were putting inspiration from this realm of existence into somebody's mind. You know, like how people talk about muses and how there are beings that inspire art and creativity. I think that's kind of how it happens. So there's this whole organization to our reality that most of us have no awareness of.
Are you able to like summons these beings at will, or do they just come in your sleep or meditation? Or
So to begin with, It's a mix of both. It's a mix of both. So around that time, it was really difficult, basically, going through that Kundalini awakening. Not only did it open my mind to these other realms and turn up my awareness for them, it also turned up my awareness for my own personal traumas, my own unresolved psychological issues. And I was basically forced to face all of that in a really rapid and difficult way. So I was out of work for 2.5 years, processing that, like waking up every night in cold sweats from nightmares. It was really, really horrible time. But thankfully, because my mind had opened, there were beings there that were helping me. So they were like deities and angels. And for those, like, I could just kind of turn a switch in my mind and they would just come straight in. Like if I was struggling with something, like I really need some help right now, and immediately I would just feel this loving energy come in, like, it's okay, you're going through this process, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, like, you're going to be okay. So it was almost like having like the best therapist ever just in my head, and that could come in at any time.
Did it
So that
feel
was,
like two competing sources for your soul?
no, it didn't feel like that. It felt more like I had been stuck, like, in my life, like a stone, and that a process had begun, or like a flower, right? Like a flower with a closed bud. It felt like a process had started where that flower was starting to open.
But I mean, the nightmares versus the angelic beings. I mean, was there a contrast there?
It just, to me, it was like the nightmares were gunk in my psyche, and the angels were supporting me to release it. But it didn't feel like a battle
Like a cleansing?
for my, yeah, like a cleansing. It was more like I was covered in mud and I was having a bath. That was kind of how I saw it.
Huh. Um, what happened to your atheist views? How did this all settle with that?
Yeah, I mean, that got thrown out of the window. It was, yeah, I realized very quickly that the divine is real. And, loads of things that I had just thought were made up, were true. And I could not believe it. It's taken a long time to get used to that, like to shift from being atheist to, everything is divine and
Would you
divinity
say
exists
you're
within it.
Christian? Would you go that
No,
far? Okay.
no,
No.
I never like aligned with any specific
Religion.
religious. Yeah, like I've learned a lot from each of the religions. My teacher was formerly Christian, so she was, as I mentioned, a Christian monastic. So she would teach about Christ, and Christ consciousness, and teach me Christian mysticism. She'd mention about like John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila, these like Christian mystics who had these mystical experiences, and I related to what they were talking about. Like I I use different language for it, but I think we're pointing to the same or similar things.
Now, what does that mean? Christian majestic? What'd you call it? What was that word?
Christian mysticism.
Oh, okay. I heard like majestic or okay, I wasn't sure that word, what that
Oh,
meant.
sure.
Mysticism, Christian mysticism. Is that more
Hmm.
like what you would describe what you are about, or I'm not sure.
I would, so let me try and explain this. So it's definitely a form of mysticism that I'm about. Um, so what I would say is that a lot of the religions have forms of mysticism where people's minds will open upwards,
Mhm.
and they'll have the kinds of experiences that I've just described there, like, you know, blending with oceans of golden light and meeting angels and having a relationship with the divine that is upwards. And when I think of religions, there's often like a focus on looking upwards, you know, our Father who art in heaven, like this upward movement.
Mhm.
And what happened to me was I had that upward movement, but then it started going the other way. And it's like that energy moved down into my heart. And I started having experiences of unity with all of life. Like there's so much love, like entering into my heart and seeing it and feeling it all around me, in the world around me and in people. And then it kept going down, and it went down like through the soles of my feet, like into the earth. And I started to feel the same kind of divine presence that I used to just feel above me. I started feeling it beneath me, like in the earth, and realizing that there's like the Holy Father above, but there's the Holy Mother below, and that she's as divine as the Holy Father. And, you know, I had all these experiences, but I wasn't really being trained or anything by anyone, or particularly that interested in reading lots of books or anything like that. I was just having my experiences and meeting these beings that were giving me a lot of guidance.
What do you mean
But
when you
there's,
say Holy Mother below? What does that mean?
to me, that's the goddess. So that's it's like there's the god above and then the goddess below. It's it's hard to describe it, but it's almost as if like the divine, which usually people call God, the divine like has two polarities, like it has two flavors. One that goes up, that's masculine, male, God, and one that goes down, which is feminine, goddess. And I find that people generally have a leaning more toward one or the other. And for me, it's more towards goddess, like the female side of divinity.
No, you don't mean hell when you say below.
No, I mean, so there's this, what I see as a common misconception that there is like a heaven above and a hell below. Um, and if you believe that the divine is only located above you, then you might not naturally feel it beneath you, and you might start labeling that as bad or wrong in some way, and create an idea of hell around that. But to me, there's just, I see it as like the overworld, the middle world, and the underworld. But the underworld doesn't mean that it's bad or terrifying or wrong. It's just another layer of life.
Okay.
And
What's the magic with a K? What does that mean? I saw that in some of your stuff, and I'm not sure what that means.
so what I'm pointing to with that is that we as human beings can serve as a bridge between all these different layers of reality. And when we do that, we're able to um, work with reality in a way that can create change and support and all of these things. So a Christian term could be prayer for that. Like if you think about it, when you're praying, you're using your mind and your intention in order to create something. but you could also use the term magic to apply to that, or at least I would.
Okay. What's the K? I mean, is there some significance to why they put the K there? Like, I'm dumb on this stuff.
I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure. To my mind, it kind of had more of a leaning towards the old ways, and that's what I resonate with. So the K makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, what about the dragons? What's the significance there?
So the dragons, um, so I've talked about angels and deities, and when I was having that the Kundalini awakening and going through all of that, I was visited by many, many different beings. And at one point, I was visited by a dragon, and I was like, no, like, dragons can't be real. This is mad. Like, and I just sort of blocked it out. Like, that's too much. I can deal with angels, I can deal with deities, but dragons, no. Um, but then more recently, um, this is like 8 years later. I've had a lot more time for everything to settle down and become nice and grounded and ordinary. Um, and I started hearing things about dragons again. Um, and I started forming connections with them. And they connected with me in the same way as all the other beings had, like talking to me in my mind, giving me lessons and doing energy healing with me. And
Do you know how that
it showed
sounds?
me,
Like, I'm really like, I've never heard that before. Like, anybody say I communicate with dragons, and
yeah,
that's a new thing for me to hear.
yeah, I understand that. I realized that a lot of what I do is pretty out there. Um, and, if I wound back the clock a little bit and heard someone talking about the things that I'm talking about now, I'd probably just think they were crazy. Like, okay, you've lost your mind. Like, that's what's going on here. Um, so it's a funny thing, like having direct experience, it changes us and opens our minds to different possibilities. And that's what's been happening with me.
It just sounds
Um,
like, you heard about meditation, and so you started doing the meditation. You heard about this or that, and then this come into your life, and then you heard about the dragons, and then they started communicating. I mean, is this all during sleep time? Is this awake time? Is this either
no,
or?
mostly awake, mostly when I'm awake.
So when you're awake, all of a sudden a dragon starts speaking to you, or some deity or
Yeah,
spirit, and they just start having communication.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So what do you do now? What are you doing with all of this information or experiences?
Yeah, so I channel these beings, like, so they ask to speak through me to people, to offer guidance to people, because they've taught me so much about life and about how to live in harmony with all of these different aspects of reality. Amazing lessons that have really changed my life. So what I'm doing is I'm channeling those beings to give people support. Um, like, I have a background in medicine and psychology, and I've also done some counseling training. So I combine that with these more kind of out there mystical um, things to help people.
Did you become a psychiatrist, or work in the field of psychiatry in any way?
No, so I was doing my training in medicine. So I did 3 years in medicine, and then I changed to psychology. So I completed my psychology degree, and then I did 2 years in psychological research and published some articles. And yeah.
But I mean, as a career, did you actually use your degree?
Well, yeah, like in my psychology degree, I did 2 years
Okay.
in research.
Oh, okay.
So I was a professional psychological researcher.
What do you do now?
Now I do this full time.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So the dragons, when I connected with them, they were very clear that they wanted me to found a school of dragon magic, which then evolved into my Rising Rose School of Goddess and Dragon Magic, which is what I do full time.
School of Dragon Magic. Is this
Yeah,
online?
it is online. Yeah, it's my Rising Rose School of Goddess and Dragon Magic.
And what do you teach it? How do you teach it? How does this work?
So it depends which part of it people are looking into. So the dragon part, that's all channeled, which means that the dragons come through me and they provide healings to people and they give guidance to people. Um, so just their energy alone is healing, and it provides a sense of peace. It resolves stuck energies inside of the body, and they're able to give just very loving and kind guidance. And then with the goddess side of the school, I do some other things, like I take people through um, like a journey really to reconnect with our living world and to deepen in their understanding of themselves in order to heal.
So it's dealing with past trauma.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's a big part of it. One of the things that I found when I talked about this downward movement of awakening, so I can feel. I'm a very energetically sensitive person, and I can feel movements of energy. And what I found was that, I said I could feel like the goddess below. I can feel movement in that ground, um, like energies moving in the ground beneath me. And I found that when I'm working with people and they're talking about a traumatic event and it's starting to heal, there will be a movement of energy from below that is like a healing movement. And it's like a part of them that was lost is coming back and returning to their body. And I see when that happens, I'll see them start to shine with that same kind of golden light that I described earlier. And to me, it's like their soul is coming back together. That, when we're traumatized, it causes parts of us to break away and we lose those parts of ourselves. But I find that those parts of ourselves they're not lost forever. They're just temporarily stuck, and they can be returned. And really, it just requires love and patience and attention. And then it comes back to us.
Where's heaven and hell in this? Is that in your thought process, or is that just words that you feel are just religious, or does this above and below have to do with any of that
Yeah.
concept?
So when I think of the terms heaven and hell, I think heaven equals good, hell equals bad. And, you want to go to heaven, you don't want to go to hell. But my view, I have a different worldview. So you kind of have to park that one and look at this one. And this one is what we want, or what is healthy, is when all these realms are working together. They're in harmony. There's a good flow between them all. That's when everything is functioning well. And each level of reality has parts of it that are problematic. Like if you think about our world, there are places where things are really beautiful and everything's going really well, and then there are other places where it is awful. And my understanding is that's true of each level. There are parts of it that aren't working well, and there are parts of it that are. It's not that above is superior to below. It's just a question of how harmonized those bits are together.
Above isn't superior to below.
Yeah.
Would below be considered like you're not dealing with your trauma, you're like in this bad pit of darkness and despair, and then you channel and help them go above to a better level? Is that what you're saying?
So I would say if a lot, so let's say someone's been through a lot of trauma, that means that their underworld is messy. And what needs to happen isn't that they rise above it, because it'll still be there. What needs to happen is that it's gradually opened so that it can move into alignment with underworld, middle world, and overworld. You know, they can gradually flow together. And I think really that's like what therapies are aimed at doing. They just have a different way of viewing it than I do.
I guess, me growing up Appalachian, my age, we grew up with the term, sweeping things under the rug. And
Mm.
so that kind of makes me think of what you're talking about in different terms of having trauma that, people didn't want to hear about, didn't want to deal with, didn't want to admit to, and bringing that out into your awareness and cleansing yourself from it, or using
Yeah,
the channeling to gain insight and to help somebody find their way out of that. Or
that's exactly it. That's
okay,
exactly it. It's like bringing a light into that darkness, but without the attitude of the light is superior to the darkness. It's just we just need to see what's going on down there. And the beings that come to me, they've got a lot of light and they've got a lot of knowledge that they can use to support that.
okay, I think I'm getting it, because it's a lot of new ideas, and that actually have this for the standard Christian. I don't know if I can represent standard Christians, but, it's kind of the fear when you see the word magic with a K, and then when you hear
Yeah,
the word dragons, and when you hear goddess or the mother and it being below, these are all
yeah,
like trigger words
absolutely.
that are like
Absolutely.
fact.
Right,
Right.
of course. I understand.
So
Yeah.
I'm really trying to be open-minded. I mean, you seem like a real sweetheart. And so you don't come off as like I'm going to um I don't know what do satanic people do? I don't know. But whatever they do.
Sure.
So you're not
Yeah, I
satanic.
mean,
You don't
I'm not
assign that.
satanic.
And you're not
No,
Christian.
no,
You
no,
have,
I'm not connected to any religion, to no religion. I just have my mystical experiences and that's where I'm at. But bless you for being open-minded. I'm aware that this is out there stuff that
well,
I'm
it certainly
sharing with
sounds
you.
a step above atheist. So would you
Yeah, I mean,
say?
definitely, it definitely. But it's funny, because I've been and I was like really atheist, like I was strongly atheist. So because my mind, my worldview has changed so much, it gives me an appreciation of when people are in a particular mindset. It's like, okay, that's the mindset that that person's in. Um, but because mine has changed so much, it's like, well, it doesn't mean that that can't ever change. Like there's always the potential to have experiences and to learn from them in ways that make us view the world a little differently. And I have respect for people who have their particular worldview. It's not like I don't want to change anyone's worldview. I don't want anyone just to believe what I say just because I've said it. I want people to have their own experiences and make up their own minds.
Now I have to ask, just I'm curious, the black fingernail polish. I've seen this on people before. Does it represent something? Like, does this
Oh,
show
on my
the world
fingers.
something? Yeah.
Oh, well, that's just like um I don't even know how to put that into words
And
really.
you're dressed in black. Like I know some people that do that. They are always dressed in black and they have the black fingernail polish. And I don't know what it means. Like it must mean something
Yeah,
for people to do that. Like
sure.
they're part of a club or
Um,
something that I'm not aware of what's going on.
I guess like to me, like it has like a connection to the goddess because like I see like the earth as a kind of like dark, you know, like it has like a dark color to it. And I imagine even that word can be triggering, right? If I'm even just saying the word dark, like it,
Yeah.
some people's minds will immediately go to a satanic place. But it's like that's not the kind of dark that I'm talking about, you know. It's like if you think of a painting, like imagine a beautiful painting, like it needs dark and it needs light, like it needs that contrast between those different shades. It doesn't mean that the dark is bad and the light is good. They're just contrasts, you know. And that's my understanding of like the goddess versus God. Like I see God as light, like the Heavenly Father, and goddess as dark, but that's very different to kind of angelic and demonic, you know. I don't know if I'm conveying it very well.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any kind of rituals or
Not
you're not
really.
here
Like,
eating babies and stuff?
oh my God.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm
Because
a
that's where
lovely
our
person.
Christian's mind go to. Like we do. We see like someone all in the black and the black fingernails. And when they say some of the words that you do, like the dragons and the
Sure.
all these kind of trigger words, we're like,
Yeah.
one
Right.
of
Well, I'm
those
glad.
gonna be in the woods, the movies we've seen chanting and eating bloody stuff. And
Right. I
so you
understand. I'm
want to
glad
cut
that
through
you're,
some of that discrimination for me?
yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing it up and we can just have an open discussion about it. Because, like, I'm not doing any, I'm not like sacrificing anyone. I'm not, like, it's like I want people to be happy. Like, I've dedicated my life to
Yeah,
helping
you have
people
this
to heal
Amish
and be
look to
happy.
you. I mean, because I'm just seeing you from here, like your hat, and you just like this really sweet Amish guy. And then I see these fingernails. I'm like, what am I seeing? Who is this guy? And because I've seen some
Right.
of the websites, right before we come on here, and I see the dragons
Hmm.
and I seen something about sex or something, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening here. So
Yeah.
just what's that? What's the
Yeah.
sex
Like,
part come into it?
so, so I see like, um, yeah, I'm very sensitive to energy, right? And I see most of the world in terms of energy. And to me, there's like sexual energy in life. You know, if you think about where we've all come from, like we've all come from
Somebody's
sex, right?
sexual
That's
energy.
like, yeah, someone's sexual energy has been involved in creating us, right?
I do
So
that a lot. I
the
look
sex.
around a big crowd of people and I'm thinking this all come from sex. You know, we're all so afraid of sex, but every
Right.
living, breathing person, that's where we came from because somebody has sexual
Yeah,
energy.
exactly. And I think there's a lot of shame around sex and sexual energy.
Yeah,
And
I'm going off tangent here, but even like eat a hamburger, the cow had sex, to
that's
make this,
true.
and a chicken, somebody was getting it on somewhere. Everything we
Yeah,
have, even a bee pollinating a flower, I don't know, but we just like it
exactly.
all
That is a thing.
revolves. I mean,
Yeah,
it's life. It's
yeah.
our whole
And
existence. It's sexual
and
energy.
definitely, definitely. And that's how I see it. Like, and I think there's a big difference between just the act of sex and sexual energy. Like, I think sexual energy is with us more than like the act of having sex is. But I think there's so much shame around sexual energy that like I've done a lot of work on my body in like relaxing my body, and I can feel areas that are tense, and like my uh, like some areas are tense and it's related to sexual energy, and it's because of shame.
Blue
um
balled.
what's that? Sorry.
Blue ball. That's what we call it here. Blue ball.
Oh, I don't understand.
You've never heard the phrase "someone is blue balled"?
uh I don't think so.
Okay, I might get kicked off YouTube for saying that word.
But there's a lot of shame, right? There's a lot of shame
Okay.
around it. Like I feel embarrassed now because I don't know what that meant.
Oh, okay.
But like, you know,
Okay.
there's
That means they haven't had sexual activity in a while. A man
oh,
with his
I know
blue
what you
balls
mean. I understand now. I understand.
backed up.
Um,
So, I
yes.
mean, we're adults here. I mean, we're talking about sexual energy, and so if person's frustrated or angry or um I mean, I know old women, okay, because I'm an old woman. So I know old women my age that are just angry because that's no longer in existence for them.
Right.
Just and
Right.
and as children, we're not sexual energy yet. And then we have those sexual
Mm.
energy years. And then I'm in the later part of life where there's no sexual energy happening out here anymore for anybody in my, age group. And so we're going off on, I'm going off on a tangent.
I find it really interesting, and I think it's really important to have these kinds of conversations because as a society, we rarely talk about it, you know, and I think that creates a lot of shame. Like if something isn't spoken about, and then people end up suffering in silence because they think they're the only one who's going through something. But if we actually talk about it, then like people relax more, you know, and then it doesn't feel like such a big deal. And it reduces stress, like just the relaxation of realizing that you're not alone in it reduces stress and makes you feel more happy. Um, so there's so much that needs to be done around that, like that sexual energy. And like you're saying, right, that's a creation. It's creation, so it's sacred. And that's kind of how I feel about like the goddess energy. Like part of it is that there's a sacredness to sexual energy, and that it's sometimes that's misinterpreted. Like it can sound like it's like seedy or perverted, but it's not coming at it from that angle. It's having a respect for the energy and for who we are as human beings and what it is to be a human being and have a sexuality.
Hmm. Because, talking about death is taboo, talking about sexual,
Yeah.
well, anything is taboo. And
Yeah.
so, and there's so much, and I use the word dark because we do that, dark, oh, I say like dark energy around like the child pornography and the whole
Yeah.
porn world and, all that. Like,
Hmm.
I know somebody that's involved in that stuff and it's just taken over their life. And then he used to be a little older boy in the Catholic Church, and now he's into the all this the porn and the drugs and the anything
Oh,
that's
right.
wrong. It's like they're just gravitating. Like I think of some are gravitated towards the light, and then there we go again with the terms. Then some seem to be gravitating towards darkness, and it seems like an either or, an up and a down, and
Yeah.
but you're saying that something else, though. You're not putting
Yeah.
things as labels and divisions, I think.
I'm kind of saying like I feel like sexuality is something that comes from below, but I'm not saying that it's bad. Like, because someone could be gravitated into that world in a really healthy way, where like, you know, they're supporting people to heal from sexual trauma, you know, so they're in the same place, but they're in it in a way that's in alignment, you know, and is working for the good of everybody.
Yeah, and the
Um,
person I was just talking about, they're into the bondage stuff, like the color and the chains and the because there is that whole world. I mean, to be honest, it's out there. And
mm,
I've just barely glimpsed, like I see what's going on over there because I see some pictures and things and I hear them talking. And I know I don't even know the half of it because that stuff's behind closed doors. But um I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm trying to communicate with you and the best
Yeah,
way I
thank you.
can.
I'm so grateful to you for being as open-minded as you're being and willing to have a conversation around it. Like I know that it's outside of the comfort zone for you and for your audience.
But I
Like,
know
and
it
I'm,
exists too.
yeah,
I mean, by me not acknowledging it, because I do know some people that are into, and I don't even know how far, they keep that away from me. And, but, and then to have this conversation, I'm not sure, like the lines get crossed here. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Say I have my normal end ear and some Christian and some not so much. And then, but you have this experience and you were atheist and now you're not, and you're in this, to me, it feels like a whole place by yourself, but you're not, because there are a lot of people that will resonate with you and not a preacher or a monk or priest, whatever,
mm,
there's
yeah,
people that are not going to go to church, but that doesn't mean that they can't find some level of spirituality, I guess is what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, and like I feel like there's so many different forms of spirituality and so many different types of people. And for some people, going to church is going to be what is right for them, and I don't want to disrespect that by telling them that they should be believing what I believe, or they should just believe the experiences that I'm talking about just because I'm saying about it. I feel more like, you know, some people feel in their heart like that there's a certain calling for them. And it's important to me that everybody's allowed to follow that, and honor their unique path.
Because I'm getting to the point where during the show, I can hear comments that are going to come later.
Oh my God.
And there's going to be some that are going to be mad that I'm questioning you and thinking that I'm judging you, that I should just let you talk and not
Oh,
question
interesting.
and not interfere, which it kind of feels like interference. I'm trying not to. But then other people will be like, well, I thought you were a Christian. Why are you having this satanic on your show? What are you doing? So I can hear the comments. I've got to the point
Sure.
when I do a show, I can hear the comments that will come in the next few weeks.
Mhm.
So, and, but I don't care. I mean, I don't say I don't care, but I understand each of those views, because I kind of like what you're saying is there's different levels. And I think all those views are on different levels too. The people that make
Mm,
comments, like they'll sit and I don't mean to make this about the show, but they'll make a comment. They'll find, well, one thing I really loved it, but the one thing I find wrong with it is, and I find people always looking for the negative.
mm.
And then you have people like, oh, I just love this so much and I feel so much compassion for this person, and they're so over the top mushy. And I kind of feel like that's where you're actually talking about when I'm talking about these people in the comments, is like these all different levels of
Yeah.
existence or not existence. What am I trying to say? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I think I know what you're trying to say. I think you're spot on. Like there are some people who have a very negative attitude and they will always find the problem, you know, and most people would, like, within the Christian kind of hierarchy, it's like, okay, well, that's hell, like, but that exists in our world, and that's just like someone who's closed-minded. But then there's other people who are open-minded and really like supportive. Maybe they're a bit more kind of connected.
And
Does that
they're
make any
all
sense?
even in Christians. Some of them can be the meanest people too. The comment, like
Yeah,
they'll start quoting from the Bible why I shouldn't even be talking to you. Like I'm
right.
dabbling with black magic, or I'm, getting too close to the
Yeah,
fire, or they'll see it that way. And I know you're not about the fire. You're not about
no,
hell. You're not promoting hell, or you're
no,
not trying to bring people down to something,
no,
because you
no.
seem genuinely trying to understand your experiences and use your education and background and your personality and your insights and what you've come to learn that's helped you deal with your past to make your
Yeah.
life better, to help other people in that way. If I'm understanding you.
I'm moved. Like, I'm moved by what you're saying, because like that's spot on. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And it's lovely that we can have this conversation where we're coming at it from different angles, like spiritually, but we can respect each other and where we are. I think that's so important, because there's no point in just trying to change other people's opinions and change their worldview, but we can listen to each other with respect.
Yeah. And, and religions, you go to whatever church it is, you're sitting in a church and you're listening to this person and there's not a lot of dialogue. You're just supposed to take everything, what they're saying as gospel, and how everybody treats you in that church, forms your opinion of yourself. And, so there's negativity even in the holiest of places that's supposed to be holy. We all know about the sex abuse in the Catholic Church, and every, we hear so much about the Mormon religion and different ones. There's darkness and light, if we want to simplify it in those terms, everywhere, from those supposed to be the highest morality into, the lowest. Like I like to watch things about drug addicts, homeless people giving interviews. I'm trying to think what's this one podcast I watch is. And to hear their perspective of their life. And you might see this, like, what people would say, oh, that's a skinhead. We took one look at him and think we know everything about him, or, oh, that's this dangerous motorcycle guy. And then you can get to know them, hearing their story, and they're not as scary as maybe somebody in a suit and tie over here that's actually
right,
stealing people's money or frauding people. And I don't know, I'm just like trying to make people realize that not everybody is what your first conclusion when you look at them. That if you get to talk to someone, that there's so many different ways to go now. It isn't just, is that person Christian? To trust someone. Oh, they're Christian, I think I can trust them to babysit my children, for example. Or this guy looks like a skinhead, maybe he's more worthy of babysitting my children than this preacher and his wife, because maybe he's molesting his children, or I don't know.
Like the skinhead drug addict on the street could be really spiritually sensitive and could be like having connections with angels, for all you know, like, and maybe someone in the church is the total opposite. I liked what you were saying there about, like, someone in a suit might end up causing a lot of harm, because it makes me think of like the financial crash and like all these massive problems that we've had, like, and that was caused by people in suits who like looked real like upstanding citizens, but they caused horrendous damage.
I had this guy call me the other day, said he was from Publishers Clearinghouse, and I knew he wasn't, but I just wanted to keep him on the phone to see when he was gonna show himself. When was he gonna ask for the money? Because that's what they're gonna do. And so after an hour, he's like, okay, I need you to go to Dollar General and get this card and go to the ATM and withdraw this money, and then we will start giving you your $2,500 a week for life or what. And then they're going to be there in 2 hours at your home with this check for $700 and some $1,000. And I know this is crap, but I'm like, okay. He said, well, are you excited? What do you think about this? Oh, I'll believe it when I see it. I know he's full of crap, but I wanted to wait and see where he was leading. When's this going to end up to money going in his pocket? Because nobody's coming to my door with that check. I mean, he's like, now wear blue and white because that's the Publisher Clearinghouse colors. And so this person is, to me, is like the worst person on earth, because they really want me to be excited and happy that we've just got rich. He wants us to be all excited and like calling our family that this is going to happen, when the whole time he's stealing from us. And he thinks I'm going to be standing there at the door waiting in my blue and white, with my family there, waiting to get my new car and my check. And then I'm going to realize, oh no, I just was at. Somebody just stole my money. Nobody's coming. Like, that is so evil. And this person is walking around the street somewhere. I'm sure he looks like the average Joe. And he's trying, you can't even, he says his name's Andrew. You can't even pronounce Andrew. That was the first clue. And Q, I mean Q, whoever, like you can say Andrew, he's trying to say Andrew. But so it's just people. There's so much out there. Like I think we're so paranoid because like if I go to a movie theater, if I go to a concert or a play, is this when the shooting's going to happen? We live in that world now. Is there going to be a shooting? You drop your kids off at school. Is there going to be a shooter today? Like we never know. I can see these ones where people just in a restaurant eating and somebody comes in and just starts. And so we all are looking at each other like, who's safe? Who can I trust?
Right.
And so if we see anything out of the ordinary, your black fingernail polish. I mean, like that's like a big thing. Like for people where I live, like, oh my gosh. Like if you went to the school PTA for your children and you had that on, nobody would talk to you. That's just like where I live. And then other places, they would not think anything of it. I mean, somebody trans come in, they don't think anything of it because they're used to seeing these things. And I live in a community that actually, they weren't even used to seeing a black person. I mean, even like 20 years ago, they were burning stakes in people's yards. I mean, this is how backwoods where I live. And so when I have guests on, I'm getting people from everywhere and different ideas. And I feel like it's an opportunity for people that live in areas like me to, like, I've had some trans people on and I've had different ones to feel compassion and realize this isn't a person that's gonna do us harm. This is a person that is embracing life and helping people. And it's different. They're going to look different. They're going to sound different. Because when we see the pictures of dragons and we see that word magic with a K, I'm telling you, my kind of people were like, run for
I understand. Like, and I think, what you were saying about the shootings and like you're kind of looking over your shoulder at people, like, hang on, who's safe? I think there's so much fear in our world and it disconnects us from each other. And then when you're disconnected from people, you don't get the opportunity to just see their humanity and realize, oh, they're just like a normal person, just like me. Like, yeah, we've got differences, but we're human. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation because it promotes that, and it needs to happen more and more. And it kind of fits with what I was saying, like that everything needs to be connected. Like we need to see each other and listen to each other so that we're connected. And because it's when we're disconnected that we start having big problems. And, that's happening all over our world. And the people who do those shootings are often very, very disconnected people.
And what I I think of what you're saying is like you're dealing with the whole person, their darkness, their light, and everything in between. Whereas I'm going to say the word Christian just to lump people up in a, category here. That, and even not even, it's not just Christians. It's, a lot of new age people that don't like Christianity. They still have it. Everybody has their judgments. Like the new age people, when I first got in the NDE community, we don't want you in here because you're Christian. And then you go into the Christian side. Well, we think you're not really Christian because you have these other people on. And so there's no room for the light and the dark and everything in between, because that's what we all really are. Even if we can put on a clear white coat presence, it doesn't mean that's what you see is what you get, because we all have some darkness in us. We all have those medium shades. And it's like where we put our energy of what we're going to act out of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what you're about.
Yeah, it is. I am about that. I'm about like creating unity between the dark and the light. Like, so, because generally, like, if we've got parts of ourselves that we don't like and that we don't think are very nice and good, we're going to push them down and we're going to try and disconnect them from ourselves.
Hide them.
Yeah. But it doesn't work. Like, it's still there. it's just we're not very conscious of it anymore. So it gives us a little bit of breathing room, like, okay, I'm not that bad thing that I thought I was, but then it's still there. And really, I think of that as like a kind of like abandoning a child. It's like it's a part of us. And what happens is that child that we push out into the cold, it's going to start banging on our door to let it in. And that's things like anxiety and depression, and then we'll try and, we'll take antidepressants to try and get rid of that, or we'll drink or whatever it is. But it doesn't get rid of the fact that a part of ourselves is trying to get back in. So what I do with people is I try to create a safe space where they don't feel judged, where those parts can start coming back. And that's when I start feeling those energies that I was talking about before, where the energy in the earth starts to move, and I start to see that that part of them is returning to themselves. And then they feel more at peace.
And that can't be wrong, right? When somebody feels more at peace as the result of whatever interaction we have with them.
Yeah, that's the goal. Like, and I've experienced it so much in my own life. Like I was really, really struggling, like, for a long time. Like I was like struggling with addictions, like when I first started having these experiences. And I don't have any addictions now. Like I've like healed from those things. And it's through being able to feel it, in my body, and bring those lost parts of myself back, that I've found peace for me, and then I'm sharing that with other people.
How do other people find out about you?
Mostly through my website or my Facebook page. So I'm Jack Morrigan on Facebook, and myrisingrose.com is my website. So yeah, that's the best way to find out about me and what I do. And then they usually send me a message, like maybe we'll have a video call just to get to know each other a little bit, and then decide where to go from there.
Do some of them have the wrong idea of what you're about? Do you think
No,
they're pretty
so
clear?
yeah, like the people who have come to me so far are pretty clear about um what I am and what I do. Like I usually it's people who have been they've like maybe seen interviews that I've done, or they have been following me on Facebook for a while, and seen the things that I talk about. And I do talk about things that most people don't talk about, like sex and death, and these things that generally people try to avoid. But I try and talk about it in a way that helps it feel more normal and comfortable, so that it doesn't have to be suppressed anymore.
And do you, since you're not using your normal, like if you were a psychiatrist, if somebody was coming in, or a psychologist, or somebody coming for psychotherapy, so you're not using that. You are using, if I understand you right, what you have created, from what you have gained from your insight and your experiences, and your guidance from the other side is what your, say, principles that you're using are coming from. Am I getting
Yeah,
close?
yeah. It's from my own, primarily my own spiritual experience. Um, and I've also had some training in counseling, so I use some of those skills. But to be honest, I feel like I was just born to do this. Like it's who I've always been. And I've always been someone who is very interested in people and their health and how to heal. And I I deeply listen to people. It's just my nature. So this is the most natural role for me to be in. So when I'm working with people, I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm just being myself. And it's an honor, like to be this, and to be able to support people to heal. And I'll get messages from people who I work with, and they'll say about how they've had some big breakthrough, and things, things that have been holding them back for a long time have been falling away. And it's just so moving. Like I love doing this work.
Well, it's nice too that people do these things online, because a lot of people won't make that effort, like to make an appointment, go to a building, get diagnosed, get on medication. They just want somebody that they can openly talk to from the comfort of their home. And I think that's what people like you are providing. I'm sure there's all kinds of, help online nowadays, but people don't realize that there is help that they can just do right from their home. They don't have to, because it's embarrassing to, go into one of those places to say, I have a problem. There's a lot of stigma around mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it does. I think it does feel safer for people just to be in their own home. And I think there's something more casual about it. Like the way that when I'm talking to people, like it doesn't have, it's not like a doctor with a clipboard, it doesn't have that quality. I'm not like trying to assess you or judge you or anything like that, or put
Figure
you in
out
a
how I
box.
can bill you. I got to diagnose you so I can bill you. Right?
Right. Like I'm from the UK, so like it's different, but like, because we don't, our healthcare is free, but
Wow.
I know in the US, like it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Most insurances won't cover mental health, and then they wonder why there's so many people out here doing weird things. But so,
Yeah.
okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. Like I feel really happy that we've had this conversation, to be honest. Like it's funny because I tend to just go with my instincts with things. So when I saw your channel on YouTube, I just went with my instincts and I got in touch with you. And I didn't realize that it would be a mostly Christian audience. Like I didn't realize that the way that I am would be quite different to that, and that could be quite challenging. Maybe I wouldn't have sent the invite to you if I'd realized that, but I'm really glad that I did, so that we can have this conversation, because it feels like a very important one.
Maybe somebody watching this will be a little nicer next time, the next person they see in the grocery line that has black fingernails. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I know I will. Like, if you don't, like, if people in my area, if they didn't know a black person, they would be afraid, and they would hear all these things and attach all, they all do this, all do that. Well, then when you're live in an area where everybody's mixed, you don't think anything of it. And then, I live in an area, and I know a lot of other people do too, that we're really secluded into our kind. People that look like us, go to the same church as us, all that. And so I feel like it gets to open up not just different people, place in the country, but all over the world. These Zoom calls, allow us to do that, to be able to I think even like on our Facebooks, we get to know other people in other countries and get to hear what's actually going on from getting to know them instead of just the news. Say maybe I'm talking to somebody in Russia or Ukraine, and we're actually, oh, this is what's really happening. And I know with Canada, with the trucking stuff last year that was going on and the riots, it was nice to be able to see some of those people actually, I'm here. This is my real pictures. This is what's really going on. Don't let the news fool you with this and that. And these little grassroots little campaigns for these causes sometimes are growing because people are getting the true picture from what's really happening. And it's probably, I'm going off probably tangent too, but it all just seems relevant in this when you open up your mind and try to get out of all these little boxes and all these places where we live and what our normal is.
Definitely. I feel that that's what we need, like more than anything in humanity, like the connection between each of us, like, and then we start feeling safer, like, because we realize that actually just if I'm wearing like nail polish, it doesn't mean that I want to cause you any harm, so you can relax.
Yeah, you're not here in the woods with this bloody stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, black nail polish, they're probably chanting in the woods and have this bloody sacrifice. Because we do, we have these hang-ups. Now, if you didn't raise
Yeah.
your hand, so you didn't see fingernails, you look Amish to me. Because there's Amish, around where I live. And so,
Oh, I see. I see.
and so I
Right.
this is a nice little Amish boy. Then I see the black leather and I'm like, wait a minute. This looks now less satanic because I'm putting the black leather with the hat, and you're really
Sure.
confusing me here, right?
Right. And I like being like that. Like I like kind of provoking people's um like expectations, that's just a part of me. Like, and I don't even think about it. Like I just do it automatically. But I think one of the good things about that is that it creates this kind of a conversation, like when someone is actually open to talking about it, because you could have easily just closed down um and just like asked me a few questions and we'd spoken and that could have been it. But it's been really nice that we've had this back and forth so that it's more open. And this is what I mean with like the energy flow. Like I feel like there's a good flow of energy, between us, and that's more connection rather than more disconnection in the world.
Yeah, because the last thing we need is more division. And with so many people becoming their true selves is what is supposed to be our goal, is we're going to have to realize that these are going to look all different ways. If you're wanting to be your true self and I'm wanting to be my true self, and my true self sounds really crazy to a lot of people where I live, even talking about near-death experiences. I mean, that would have put me in a room with nobody speaking to me. And I've been in those rooms most of my life where for one reason or the other, we're not speaking to her. She comes from a bad home. Her parents were divorced. She's poor. She's too skinny, or if she's too fat, or if she's too old, or she looks too young. We have all these hang-ups that we do subconscious that, like, I think we, bring them out in the open, like, wait a minute, why am I feeling uncomfortable about this person? Is it, the skinhead, or is it the black fingernails, or is it this? A lot of women not a lot of women, I see women my age sometimes, and they have this bright purple hair, this green hair, they're doing a lot of weird things. And to me, it's just a weird thing, and it's hard to look past that. But I think if we bring it out of our subconscious to our conscious, I'm like, I'm having an issue with a color of hair. This is how silly,
Right.
or I'm having an issue that they're so huge, or they're so tiny, where they anorexic, they're about ready to die, maybe they're sick. We just have so much judgment and harsh that we actually bully people without realizing that we are. We're excluding people. We're make people feel like they don't belong anywhere because they don't fit in this little thing. I don't know. This has been interesting.
No,
it's very different. It opened my eyes. And so I hope it'll open the eyes of the audience to, because I'm telling you the truth. When I see a K on magic, like my whistles go off, like, what is this? Like people friend request me. I get so many on my Facebook that are they call themselves witches. I see it all the time. Like, what is this? Why is everybody a witch nowadays? Like, do I want this person that's a witch on my Facebook? Or do I want to, we make these judgment calls. We get a friend request. Oh my gosh, she's a witch. Do I want a witch? Oh my gosh, and even the foreign countries. Okay, this person is from this other country, and maybe they have this thing on their forehead. Do I want to accept a friend request? We make these judgment calls all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and I think the realization is like dawns on us eventually that there are good and bad people in every group of people, and that someone could just be having a bad day, and we catch them at a bad time, and then we make a judgment about everyone who looks like them, and I think we need to kind of take a step back and remember that we're very similar. And even if we have some differences, like ultimately we're all human. We all want to be liked, you know, we all want to be approved of.
And me, at the same time, we're all in fear of trying to figure out who do we trust in this room. We're scanning the
mm,
room. Who looks like they could do us harm,
mhm.
and who looks like a bad influence. And yeah. And I've had people so similar to me, like we're so much alike and we get to be best friends. And I realize, oh my gosh, when get to know somebody, and this person is such a liar, they're such a fake, they're such a user, they're such a, like, how did I overlooked so many things in their personality that were obvious in the beginning because I thought we were similar,
Mm.
you know.
Right,
Say we're
exactly. And
both
then,
Catholic, say we're both bleach blondes, we're both the same age, we both grew up in the same area, we thought we had so much in common, and then you get to know somebody and wow. And what I mean, you
yeah.
overlooked that you knew they were a liar from the get-go and you overlooked it. You knew, then you found out they were using people's and you overlooked it because they were so similar. This is too deep for this morning. But
I
I
always
could go
love deep
there with,
conversations.
yeah, I can go there with you, which a lot of people you can't. Like I even have some guests,
Mm.
like even the few minutes we chat before the show starts, walls up.
Ah,
Like
okay.
walls up. Like you can chit chat. Like, okay, we're gonna get introduced. We're gonna start right away. Like they don't want to talk. And then later on, like give them their hour to talk. And then at the end, ask a question. And they're just all like wall up. Like, don't ask me questions. I don't know. I'm really strange this morning. It's an off day, and because that's what happens, right? When we go muddling, crossing the lines, we get kind of uncomfortable because we're not in that box. We're
Mm.
exploring all the levels,
Yeah.
and I guess it's easier to fit in your little thing and feel like you have everything and everybody figured out is a form of control.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
what you're talking about and what you do, it seems like there's no lines, there's no
Yeah.
boxes.
I try and keep things very open, but what giving there like a safe container though, like some kind of boundary, you know, and learning to adjust that so people can expand out. But it does, you know, it can feel scary to do that. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe they need to come back in a little bit and then come back out. But there's wonderful benefits to that, you know, like you were talking about maybe not forming connections with someone who's friended you on Facebook because they've put that they're a witch on there. Well, they could be like some amazing human being, you know, and you're missing out on the opportunity to have a relationship with them and learn from each other, you know, and maybe then forcing yourself to have connections with people who, you know, aren't, you know, like you were saying, someone who's a liar, they look like you, but they're a liar and a cheat. You know, we can, when we open our boundaries, there are real benefits to that.
And I had 60 foster kids. So, that was 60
Oh,
different
whoa.
kids from different backgrounds
Wow.
coming in my home, sitting at my table, sitting on our couch in the evening, using our shower, getting to know your family. You're just bring a stranger in your life. And it was got so commonplace. It was so normal that, but then as generations went, because like every 10 years, I felt like I was seeing kids are changing. Maybe I'm changing. Maybe I'm getting more stuck in my ways but I felt the kids were changing and they were getting, like morals was gone. There
Mm.
was, the decency was gone. They weren't being taught things at home. The kids that coming into our homes, they were just kids. But yet, as time went on, I started seeing like the society's changing because these kids that are coming in now are worse, seemed worse than kids that I got previous. They had no remorse. They could do awful things to people. We had this one girl, we adopted her and her twin, and we went to Walmart and we noticed she was buying something. Like, oh, where'd you get money? And so on the car and way coming home, she said, I found it on the floor, the lunch room. She saw a kid. Then the story went, asked more questions. Well, she's seen the kid drop it. And I said, when someone drops money, you say, excuse me, you dropped your money. You don't put it in your pocket because they're not going to have a lunch. So you could buy something extra for yourself at Walmart, but they didn't get their lunch. You have to explain these things. Like, how did they not know morals? And so we got home and there was a voicemail from her teacher saying, I know none of my students would do this, but I'm calling all of my students' families and letting them know that I had money for this teachers to go on a field trip the next day, and she lost it. And come to find out, that was actually where the money come from. It wasn't somebody dropped it in the lunchroom. This teacher was talking and had this money in her hand and laid it on my daughter's desk and turned to the board to do something and forgot about what she was doing. But my daughter, adopted daughter, had put this in her book bag. And so later when she's like, where did I put that? She didn't remember where she laid it. She couldn't find the money and she was crying because now they can't go on this trip. And where did this money go? I know none of my students would take it. I don't know where I laid it. I don't know what I did with it. And she was in tears. And here, one of our adopted kids, I found out her sister come up and told on her. She says, Mom, she says, I think she took because there's money down here. So the next morning I take her and I have her turn that money into her teacher. And the teacher is just horrified. She runs out of the room. She couldn't believe my daughter would do that. Another teacher come in to deal with it. Her eyes was real big. And, it's not my fault. I got this child at 8 years old and she's doing this at like 11. And, we teach our children, from birth. And there's so many kids not being taught things from birth. Like, I think if we all lived in a Christian society, because that's my hang up, right? Like if we'd all teach our kids right from wrong and they go to church and they learn these things, that's me, but that doesn't mean that even those people can't do horrible things, right? And so she just has grown up, and it's just one example, I could go on all of them and things they did, right? But it's just, she continued to go on in her life and just not care. And then we realize that it's this detachment. It's something that a lot of adopted children get, where their parents don't love them and don't show them love.
Yeah.
And so she had no love for us or love. She couldn't feel that love for her teacher. Like, you and I, we couldn't do that to our teacher. Like stand there and see our teacher crying. Where did that money go? This is where the teacher's trip. Like our heart would be like, oh, I couldn't do that, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is. You know what I mean? Like we have a conscience, but she felt nothing. And then she still goes around life, just feels nothing for people.
I really feel for her, like, because for her to be in that place, like what had to have happened, like for her heart to become that closed, like it's easy to point the finger at somebody like that and go like they're wrong, like and blame them. But I think the deeper truth is like humanity is complicated and we pass things on, like if parents have had a really difficult time, they pass it on to their kids and then they give their kid away and then you adopt the child. It's like that child has been through a lot already and they're only young.
And her identical twin sister was loving and open to us and was like mommy's baby girl when this her twin sister, the one that was stolen things, she never wanted anybody to touch her. Don't hug me, don't talk to me. She cared about her twin and that was it. That was the existence of her world. She didn't care about anybody else. There was never any, even when she had boyfriends, she would cheat on them and she was seeing other people. She didn't understand a relationship. You just see this one person, you fall in love, what I mean? There's a just disconnect. And I think there's a lot of people more so nowadays than maybe in the past, because there was so much kinship I think in families before. And when kids get removed, like you say, and then you're in another home and who knows what all bounce around they did before that. And at some point they decide to shut down. And so,
Yeah.
and now
I
you
think
are
it's
somebody, you have the look in your website is somebody she would actually reach out to. You know, she would not me.
right.
She would somebody that looks in your website and everything that would appeal to her because
Mm,
she gravitates towards those images and those words that scare me. You know, the magic with the K, that's something she would gravitate for. And so if she would
mm,
gravitate towards that and then come to you and you would honestly help her deal with trauma, and you're not out
right.
here sacrificing animals in the woods. You
No.
know, because there are those people out there, I'm sure, that have
I,
websites that might have the same symbols and pictures and look and feel that are actually going to go in a bad direction, a harmful direction.
yeah. And I think it's true of every group, you know,
Mhm.
like I'm trying to think of some good examples. But and I'm sure there are examples in Christianity of groups of Christians who have done some terrible things, but then they're using the symbol of the cross um, for that. Yeah, I guess it's the confusing thing with symbols. Like if we just apply it to everyone who uses that symbol, then we're always going to be missing people who have actually got good hearts and want to do good things in the world. Um, but a lot of the people that I work with it is like people who have suffered with trauma and been through some difficult times. Um, and because I have, you know, so I understand it. It's easy for me to be non-judgmental about it because I relate to it.
Now, do you teach them to channel also or meditate
Um,
or?
don't think I do some meditations with some of my programs, but I haven't taught people specifically how to channel. Um, I would like if they had like a natural kind of ability to do it, like I would happily do that to help them to form the kinds of helpful connections that I have in my life. Um, I would definitely, yeah, I would do it.
Well, thank you. It's been very interesting. And
Yeah.
I hope you've had a good time.
I have. I have. I think this has been a fantastic conversation. And again, I'm just so grateful to you for being so open. Um, I think it just feels important. Like it's one of those conversations that feels like it's bigger than either of us, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm really glad that we've done this and we've had this conversation.
And you now know what blue ball means.
That's my takeaway.
It's your takeaway. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great
Bye.
talking to you.
Bye bye.